Okay, so we've all been there. Right.
Yeah.
Super excited to start this new habit. Like, I don't know, running every morning. Or
Right.
finally learning, like, that new language you always wanted to speak, but then, like, a few weeks later,
Yeah.
motivation just fizzles out,
Yeah.
and you're back to square one.
Absolutely.
What if I told you there's a way to, like, actually make those changes stick?
Yeah.
Not through, like, crazy willpower,
Right.
but just by, like, understanding the science behind how habits actually work.
That's what James Clear dives into in his book Atomic Habits, right?
Okay.
It's not about these massive sweeping changes like overnight. It's about those tiny, tiny, almost like imperceptible tweaks
Hmm.
that compound over time. Like, you can think of it almost like the concept of compound interest,
Yeah.
but for self-improvement.
So I'll admit, when I first heard about this whole, like, 1% better each day, I was kind of,
Yeah.
really, is that all? It just sounded way too simple.
Right.
But, thinking about it now,
Yep.
if you wanted to, like, start running, for example,
Yeah.
instead of, like, going for a marathon on day one,
Right.
what if you just, like, added an extra minute or two to your walk each day?
Exactly.
Then before you know it, you're running a 5K and you don't feel overwhelmed.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a powerful approach, really, because it like leverages how our brains are wired.
Okay.
And Clear breaks down this whole process into what he calls the 4 laws of behavior change.
Okay.
It's a framework for understanding the habit loop, which is like cue, craving, response, and reward.
So let's break that down a bit.
Yeah, totally.
I'm picturing, like, a cue as the trigger.
Okay.
But, like, seeing a plate of cookies on the counter,
Yeah.
and then comes the craving, that urge to, like, indulge, right?
Yeah.
Next is the response, like you actually grabbing that cookie.
Right.
And finally the reward, that, like, sweet, sugary satisfaction.
Yeah. No, that's a great example.
Okay.
But what's really cool is that, like, this framework goes beyond just understanding the cycle. It actually gives you the tools to, like, engineer your habits, right? So
Okay.
let's say you want to make a habit more attractive. You could try temptation bundling.
Okay.
Like, let's say you love listening to podcasts,
Yeah.
but you struggle to, like, keep your house tidy.
Uh-huh.
What if you only let yourself listen to your favorite podcast
Okay.
while you clean?
I see.
So you're basically like hacking your brain's reward system
Yeah.
by linking something you actually enjoy
Okay.
to something that you've been like avoiding.
That's cool. So what about the, like, neuroscience of this?
Yeah,
I
totally.
remember reading something about dopamine and how it relates to, like, habits.
Absolutely. So each time you experience a reward,
Yeah.
your brain releases this little hit of dopamine.
Okay.
It's the feel-good neurotransmitter, right?
Wow.
And this just reinforces that whole habit loop,
I see.
making it more likely you'll actually like repeat that behavior.
Yeah.
And that's exactly why temptation bundling works. Because you're piggybacking on that like dopamine rush from that activity that you already enjoy.
But isn't relying on only, like, these small changes kind of too slow?
Oh, that's interesting.
What if I need to make, like, a big change quickly?
Yeah.
Like, say I have a big presentation coming up.
Yeah.
And I need to, like, overhaul my public speaking skills.
Well, that's a great question. And that's where understanding your mindset comes in, right?
Well, okay.
So Clear emphasizes how important it is to focus on building systems,
Really?
not just chasing those goals,
No.
So instead of thinking, I need to become this like amazing public speaker,
Right.
you might focus on, okay, I'm going to practice giving like a short presentation to a friend, once a week. And by like breaking it down into these small, manageable steps
Yeah.
and focusing on the process,
Right.
you're actually creating a system that supports your progress.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's kind of like shifting your identity almost, right?
Yeah.
You're not just trying to give a good presentation.
Oh,
You're, like, becoming someone who regularly practices and, like, refines their public speaking skills.
You got it. It's about aligning your actions
Yeah.
with the person you actually want to become.
Okay.
And that's where things get really interesting because
Yeah.
these small changes, they can have this like huge impact on shaping your identity over time,
Right. Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's pretty cool how these like seemingly insignificant actions can like gradually reshape who we are,
Yeah.
And Clear dives into this whole concept of like identity-based habits,
Right.
and how these small wins, like they really reinforce our desired self-image, right?
Uh-huh.
So for example, each time you stick to your plan, like we were talking about, practicing public speaking,
Okay.
you're not just like honing the skill,
Uh,
you're actually solidifying that identity as
yeah.
someone who's like committed to growth and improvement.
Right. That's like such a good point. It's not just about checking things off a list.
Yeah.
It's about like those actions actually becoming a part of who you are.
Right.
So
Yeah.
how do you actually choose those
Yeah.
habits? The ones that like align with that desired identity.
It starts with like getting clear on your core values.
Okay.
What truly matters to you.
Right.
Is it, I don't know, creativity, health, connection, learning?
Yeah.
Once you pinpoint those guiding principles,
Okay.
then you can start choosing those habits that support them.
Okay.
So, if you value learning, for instance,
Right.
maybe you dedicate 30 minutes every evening to like reading or taking an online course or something.
Mm-hmm.
And by consistently like acting in accordance with your values,
Yeah.
you reinforce that like sense of self,
I see.
which makes it way easier to stick with those positive habits.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about like building good habits,
Right.
but let's be real. We all have those, those not so great habits. We'd love
Yeah.
to like kick to the curb.
Pesky little gremlins.
Yeah, those pesky little gremlins
Yeah,
that seem to like sabotage all our best efforts.
for sure.
So does Clear offer any strategies for like actually breaking those bad habits?
He does. So it's essentially flipping the script on the 4 laws of behavior change.
Okay.
So instead of making the habit obvious,
Right.
you make it invisible.
Okay.
So like, for example, if you're trying to like cut back on social media,
Right.
try like deleting those apps from your phone or
Right.
logging out of your
That
account.
too.
And then instead of making it attractive,
Right.
you make it unattractive.
Okay.
So let's say you're trying to like break this late night snacking habit.
Right.
Try like brushing your teeth and flossing right after dinner.
Okay.
That makes grabbing that bag of chips a lot less appealing.
Right, right. Yeah. I can see how that would like totally work.
Yeah.
It's about like creating that friction
Yeah. Like,
and making that like undesirable behavior less tempting.
yeah.
So to make a habit difficult, you would basically like increase the effort required,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
Like if I wanted to watch less TV,
Uh-huh.
I could like put the remote in a whole other room
Right.
or even unplug the TV altogether,
Yeah.
making it like more of a conscious choice to turn it on.
Exactly. You're basically increasing the, what they call it, the activation energy
Oh, okay.
that's needed to like engage in that habit.
Okay.
And then finally, instead of making it satisfying, you make it unsatisfying.
Right.
So this could involve like implementing some form of accountability or maybe even like a negative consequence,
Right.
right? Like for instance, you could tell a friend about your goal
Yeah.
and ask them to like check in on your progress.
Okay.
Or you could even set up like a system where you donate money to a cause you like really dislike
Okay.
every time you slip up.
That's a really interesting approach.
Yeah.
So it seems like a lot of this comes down to being really intentional with your environment
Yeah.
and like using those external cues to your advantage, right?
Exactly.
I remember reading about Claire's concept of like habit stacking,
Mm-hmm.
where you essentially like piggyback a new habit onto an existing one.
Yes.
Can you like elaborate on that a little bit more?
Absolutely. So habit stacking really leverages the power of like these existing neural pathways in your brain.
Okay.
It's about creating a chain reaction of positive behavior.
Okay.
So let's say like you already have this solid habit of making your bed every morning.
Uh-huh.
You could stack a new habit, like doing 5 minutes of meditation
Yeah.
right after you finish making the bed.
I see.
So by linking those actions together,
Uh.
you're essentially creating this like mental shortcut,
Yeah.
that makes it way easier to adopt that new habit.
I actually tried that recently with like my morning routine. And I have to say, it was like surprisingly effective.
Cool.
I started doing like a quick set of stretches right after I brushed my teeth.
Yeah.
And now it's just like second nature.
That's awesome.
It's almost like my brain doesn't even have to think about it anymore.
That's great. That's exactly how it's supposed to work. You can get really creative with this whole habit stacking thing.
Okay.
Maybe you want to start journaling, but you're like, ugh, I just don't have the time.
Yeah.
Try writing down like 3 things you're grateful for while you're waiting for your coffee to brew or something.
Okay.
So by embedding these new behaviors into your existing routine,
Right.
you're making them like a seamless part of your day.
So we've covered the 4 laws of behavior change.
Yep.
The importance of like identity-based habits,
Uh-huh.
strategies for breaking bad habits, and then this whole concept of habit stacking.
Yeah,
There's a lot to like digest here.
it really is. Yeah.
It's definitely more than just your average like self-help book.
It goes beyond that like surface level advice, you know? It
Hmm.
provides this framework for like really understanding the deeper mechanisms that like drive our behavior.
Okay.
So it's about like equipping you with the knowledge and tools to make that lasting change,
Yeah.
one small step at a time.
Yeah.
But you know, as with like any journey of self-improvement, there's always challenges, right?
Yeah.
And potential pitfalls.
Totally.
So we talked about how those small changes can lead to like these big results, but
Right.
what about those times where you hit like a plateau or struggle to like stay motivated, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
How do you keep that momentum going
Yeah. How do you like,
when things get tough?
yeah, how do you like maintain that consistency over the like the long haul, especially when you're faced with those like inevitable setbacks and challenges,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, it's like that, you know, that whole saying, like, motivation gets you started, but habit keeps you going.
Right, right.
But how do you, like, actually cultivate that kind of, like, unshakable habit,
Yeah.
especially when life throws you those curveballs, you know?
Yeah, well that's where Clear's emphasis on like systems and long-term thinking really comes in, right? It's about like building this structure
Mm.
that really supports your habits
Right.
even when, that motivation dips a little. So one of the key strategies he talks about is tracking your progress.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be like anything fancy,
Yeah.
even just like a simple habit tracker,
Yeah.
or even just marking off those days on a calendar
Mhm.
that can give you this like visual representation of your consistency.
You know, I've found that, like, having that visual element can be super motivating.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's like you're creating this chain of success,
Exactly.
and like breaking that chain becomes like way less appealing the
All right.
longer it gets.
Absolutely.
But what about those times when you like inevitably slip up, right?
Yay, of course.
We all have those moments,
Sure.
where we like miss a workout or have that, extra slice of cake.
Totally.
So how do you like actually bounce back from those setbacks without spiraling,
Yeah.
into this like cycle of guilt and self-criticism?
Right, right. Well, Clear talks about, you know, the importance of self-compassion
Okay.
and just focusing on getting back on track quickly.
Yeah.
So he introduces what he calls the 2-day rule,
Okay.
which basically means like never missing a habit twice in a row.
Okay.
So if you miss that workout one day,
Yeah.
you make sure you get back to it the next day.
Okay.
So it helps prevent those like isolated slip-ups
Right.
from turning into like these full-blown habit derailments.
Right. That's such a like it's such a good tip.
Yeah.
It takes the pressure off like striving for this, unrealistic perfection.
Totally.
And instead like emphasizes consistency over time.
Exactly.
I imagine like having a support system can help too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Having people who like encourage you
Yeah.
and keep you accountable.
Huge. Yeah. Clear actually highlights how powerful it can be
Okay.
to like join a culture where your desired behavior is actually the norm, you know?
Okay.
So this could be like a running club, you know, a book club, a community of like language learners,
Right.
anything where you're like surrounded by people who share your goals and values.
Yeah.
This not only like gives you that sense of accountability, but
Right.
it also makes the like habit itself more attractive and enjoyable.
This has been such a great like deep dive into Atomic Habits.
Yeah, it's a good one.
It's more than just like a book. It's a whole framework
It really is.
for like understanding how we change,
Absolutely.
and creating a life that aligns with who we like want to become.
It's powerful, right? Like just realizing that, you know, even these small, seemingly insignificant changes
Right.
can have this like huge impact on our lives over time.
Like Claire says, success is the product of daily habits, not once in a lifetime transformations.
That's so good.
So if you're out there and you're looking to make a lasting change,
Yeah.
whether it's like improving your health or your relationships or like your productivity,
good.
really anything,
Anything.
Atomic Habits is a great place to like start.
I think so.
It's like a guide to building a better future, one small step at a time.
And we'd love to hear from you too.
Oh yeah.
You know, what little changes are you inspired to make
Right.
after this deep dive?
Yeah.
What habits are you going to like focus on building or breaking to create the future you want? Remember, even the smallest actions, they can compound into extraordinary results over time.